that I do have just a little bit of technology of how to turn it on and turn it off.
Absolutely. Well, let's pick right up. Let's go back to the tiny houses. I want to hear your take because I was telling the people that you had a lot to say about the placement. So let's talk about the potential
Well,
placement of these tiny homes.
I think that as it's presented, I know that the city may own land, in certain areas of our community, but but there were three proposals that was there. One, Washington Drive. Two was Eufaula Street, and three, I think it was Alexander. But if you look at Washington Drive, that's where the Martin Luther King entrance, uh, and they're looking at economic. I mean, they're looking at development of that with the spiral. Fayetteville State has Bronco Square, and they want to use Philippine Drive as Bronco Lane, and then that's right across the street from our new senior citizen facility, recreation facility, and then again, it's in the floodplain. And so it just doesn't make sense to put I mean, to put 50 tiny homes in that area. Now, if you can recall, we call certain parts of our community as an environmental racism uh, portion, and that's Eufaula Street, which is right next door to our city landfill. At one point in time, it was a vibrant community. Now I think there's less than 20 homes
Well, let me
over
say
there.
this, Mr. Floyd, because this is what I said when Kathy and I came back from, I'm pretty sure it was San Antonio, and we were trying to pitch this idea of duplicating some of the things that we saw. I proposed that area, and here's why I did so. Because Mr. Floyd, and this is what I told the city manager when we had the conversation, because he raised the same concern you're raising. And when we were in this meeting, some of the people in the meeting were sort of like, well, it's next to the landfill. And very succinctly and simply, I said, if it was good enough for our children, it's good enough for these grown-ups for transitional housing. Because don't let us not forget that until very recently, we had an elementary school over there.
Yes,
So let us
yes,
not
we
forget
we
that. So and nobody was jumping up and down saying move those kids out of that roach infested moldy school until the administration came in and saw what was going on in the school and said got to get them out. So none of the community was rallying saying move the kids. So I don't want to hear it if that's where they decide to go for that. Because if it was good enough
well,
for
I'm
our
just
elementary school students, it's good enough for these grown-ups for transitional housing.
well, well. Let me get one thing straight with you, Madam
Go
Waddell.
ahead, sir.
Uh, the location of these tiny homes or any homes as it relates to the home will be, Madam, in 301.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm not upset with your comment, but if they're gonna be some tiny homes or anything, it's gonna be in 301. Okay, so when we look at
Absolutely.
Alexander Street, that's in 301. So I think that the idea is something that we all want, want to see. But the question that many will have, why 301? It's a simple process. Why it's in 301? We don't need to go into that portion. Why 301?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mr. Floyd, I'm glad you're back because I like two people conversations a lot better than talking about it by myself. We wrapped up with the curfew. Let's talk about these market house repairs. That's where we were heading right before you said that you were going to try and get back on, and I said, well, we'll wait for you for that because I know you had some strong feelings about that too.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for looking at remodeling the market house. I mean, because sometimes people in our community feel that they have arrived and they no longer have to struggle. Is that they are equal to other portion of our community. So if you're willing to spend taxpayer dollars to renovate that, and then it let me know that my struggle must continue. I can't
Yeah.
relax And
Yeah.
so, I think it's beautiful. You want to expand the footprint of it so you can have larger crowds, and you want to take away Black Life Matters, in which we have a lot of a removal of population from our community, if you understand, through the African American community by African Americans themselves.
By African
So,
Americans themselves.
it let me know that I still must continue to fight for those things that I want. So I'm not upset about that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so
That's
let me go. I
beautiful.
want to go back because I want to double down on something I said, Mr. Floyd. I need for everybody to hear me when I say, and I mean this. I think that the area next to the landfill is the best place to situate these 50 units if there's enough space. Because if it was good enough for our elementary school students, it is good enough for transitional housing for grown-ups.
Well, Tish,
So, city council,
if you look
please consider that because anywhere else is not a good fit. Near the Civic Center, not a good fit. Not a good fit. Near the Martin Luther King Park, not a good fit. The only good fit of the three proposed areas that they talked about is the area that's near the landfill. And I know that sounds janky and all of that, but let me tell you, we grown-ups, we can fend for ourselves. We can figure it out for ourselves. If we just need a place to rest our head until we can get somewhere better, we take what we can get and we don't throw a fit. These kids deserve better because they can't do that. So if anybody was going to be yelling and shouting about the placement of something at any point in time, they should have been yelling and shouting about those children being in that school next in that roach infested, mildew infested, where the foundation didn't even meet up with the baseboards. They should have been fussing about that instead of wanting to. If anybody has something to say, city council, y'all send them my way. If y'all decide on that location, send them to me. I'll fight that battle for you. Now that's one I'll fight
well,
for you.
I don't have any problem. Only thing I'm saying to you, whatever selection it's going to be, it's going to be in 301 if they move forward.
Yeah. I was so
So,
glad.
so
I
I'm
just
not
got to say
agreeing
this.
with
I
you.
was so proud of our school system when they moved those teachers and students into W.T. Brown because W.T. Brown had plenty of space. And I know it was inconvenient for some parents, but it was better for those kids. So I was so glad when they made that decision. Moving on, though, because I know we had moved past that. I just had to go back and I just needed to reiterate that. Mr. Floyd, let's talk about this is another hot topic. The economic development projects, what's being built across Fayetteville. Let's talk about it. So when we look at this conversation is an interesting one because there's a lot that is going on across our community. Oh, Mr. Floyd, did we tell the people what types of renovations they could expect from the market house? So they should expect structural renovations, a clock tower overhaul, safety measures. So a waist high water wall barrier has been installed, and scaffolding is scheduled to go up in early May. They should expect street closures. The 100 block of Person, Hay, Green, and Gillespie streets will experience temporary
Mhm.
closures to facilitate some of the work. Detour routes will be posted in advance of each street closure to ensure pedestrian safety and accessibility. The project is expected to take about 5 months with completion aimed for late summer. The timeline will have to be adjusted based on weather or unforeseen circumstances. There will be a site redesign, which was approved in February 2024, which includes creating a larger gathering space around the market house with brick pavers replacing the existing Black Lives Do Matter mural. Traffic and pedestrian study, a 5 month study, which aims to enhance accessibility and flow, with the final design options expected by August of 2025 and renovations completed a year from then. Now, the historical significance has been, and the controversial past has been beaten in the ground. If you want to know about that, just pull up an article and it'll tell you all about it. Mr. Floyd, you have anything else you want to add before we move on to talking about
Let's move on with the
this
project
proposal?
because it let me know that my struggle is still on.
Okay, so
That,
Fayetteville is experience, and you're talking about the people who just don't like the market house in general. That this shows them
yes,
that wasn't nobody even really tripping off what they was talking about to begin with. Okay,
yes.
so Fayetteville is experiencing a surge in development with numerous commercial, and residential projects under review by the city's Technical Review Committee. Here's a snapshot of these proposed developments. We've got some commercial developments, Studio Res and Live Smart Hotels on a 30.53 acre lot at 102 Westwood Shopping Center, a Chick-fil-A proposed on Swain Street, Murphy USA Fuel Station, two of them, one at 6337 Rayford Road and another at Swain Street and Skybow Road with 10 pumps. Buford Electric, a new 6,000 square foot commercial building proposed at 201 South Broad Street, a 7-Eleven proposed for 3275 Rose Hill Road. Fayetteville Habitat for Humanity, that goes back to what you were saying about Rose Hill Road. Fayetteville Habitat for Humanity has a 2-story addition plan for their office on Bargain Street. A Whataburger is planned at 7547 South Rayford Road as part of the Sand Hills Gateway development. An FTCC truck driving center is projected on Rayford Road. Sycamore Square Hotel, a 124 room hotel on Bragg Boulevard. Jim and Nick's Barbecue. Is that what they're putting on the corner of Bragg Boulevard, Mr. Floyd, when you come off of Sycamore Square Shopping Center? No, that's not that. Jim and Nick's Barbecue, a 4,500 square foot restaurant planned at South Rayford Road and Gillis Hills. Northgate Mall improvements on Ramsey Street, and Yarden Domes Manufacturing.
Let me ask you a question. All those
That's
things
just
that you
commercial.
read out, I mean, all those things that you read out there, you know, but I didn't hear you. I know I cut you off. I didn't hear anything about for technical review any projects in the Murchison Road area that you overlooked it, or you were there any project in the on
Well,
Murchison Road?
there was no commercial projects. Let's talk about residential development. So a 228 unit apartment development is proposed on Rayford Road. A 300 unit apartment complex is proposed on Legend Avenue. A multi-phase project is proposed. Um, it doesn't say where, but it
Okay,
says
but you still have. I mean, I know you're reading it. I mean you, but you know, and I know that you have seen it prior to. Did you see any project for Murchison Road?
I see one on Shaw Road.
Okay, now if you look at Shaw Road, if you look at Shaw Mill Road, there is one there. If you look at
That's it.
Hillsborough Street, where Innismuch is going to build, and if you look at Moore Street, where you have
That's
some,
it.
but my question is, you, I mean, but you as a former council member and council member today, you all always talk about improvement or enhancing the Mercer Road car. You was a council person at one time, just like I was a legislator, and you have council members now. But my question to you is that, and you read all the time, did you read anything about Mercer Road? So our community, our community is again is being overlooked as it relates to growth. But one thing I can give you credit for in your reading is that if you need some gas, you can come to Fayetteville.
Baby, and if you need a restaurant, you can sure find one here.
I mean, so you can look at, and that goes back to another thing that the mayor was talking about, and that's funding as it relates to Cape Fear Valley, the Cumberland County School System, the police department, and other entities, is to get them to locate the Fayetteville with a $30,000 low interest rate loan for first time home buyers. And so it's sort of, you know, go hand in hand. But I know that this is a conversation of how we want to attract people into our community. But we got to realize that we're just a service based community.
That's it. I
That's
mean, and
that's
not to
what.
say that's it as if that's demeaning, but we need to. That's it. We need to realize we have to be honest with ourselves about who we are and what we're good at. And once
Yeah,
we
I
do
mean,
that, we'll stop trying to be somebody else. Because that's the problem that our community is having is that we've got elected officials who want to make us something that we are not. And
but
unless you're going to change the whole demographic of the city of Fayetteville, you got to accept your people for who they are.
well, that's what we are. We are a service-based organization, and if we lose Fort Liberty, I mean Fort Bragg now, if we
Thank you.
lose Fort Bragg, we are losing a economic engine for our community, and that money is spent back into our community. And it shows because we provide the services for the military
And Mr. Floyd,
personnel.
if anybody who has ever been connected to the military knows that every community that surrounds a major installation, this is the case. And so instead of trying to reimagine what this is supposed to be like, take what you have and make it the best that it can be. So instead of bringing in menial service industry, bring in high quality service industry that can help elevate your community, but stop trying to be something that you're not. Mr. Floyd, I got a question for you.
Hmm?
Speaking of trying to be something that you're not and trying to elevate something to a place where it should not be elevated, we talk a lot about the. I got my baby's pointer for school. We talk a lot about the um the climate of the downtown footprint. With this pause that the county commissioners entered into, moving ahead and looking at how now the conversation is being had, build downtown or don't, what is your take on these articles that we're seeing pop up that say that certain people want to have a seat at the table where this conversation is concerned?
Well, first of all, I mean, there's two groups that say that they want to be a part of the conversation.
Hmm.
Okay, because we know that they want it downtown, but there's another group that say no. And if you are a government entity, the thing that you should look at when you start looking at economic development and investing $170 million, you should look at how can I grow my investment around that 170 million dollars. What that means is that how can I increase the business opportunity so that I can collect more revenue around my project.
Hmm.
But to me, the two groups is already going to support it, and what they want to do is to have a conversation to continue to support the location. I
Right.
submit to you that the footprint is too small. And if
Hmm.
I was a member of the county board of commission, I would have never voted to put it in that place for the first place because of the footprint.
Right. And so those two organizations are the Cool Spring Downtown District and the Civic Center Commission. And interestingly enough, one of our viewers, Mr. Peter Pappas, is on the Civic Center Commission and was quoted as emphasizing the need for inclusion by stating, "We just want a seat at the table. This is too big a project to navigate alone." Bianca Bennett from CSDD highlighted the organization's foundational support for the downtown revitalization projects, like the Crown Event Center, and noted that they learned about the project's pause through media reports. Now, Chairman Deviere did acknowledge the importance of these organizations and stated that both of them are considered key stakeholders. He did mention that a liaison from the Civic Center Commission does attend the meetings to provide updates, and that the commission's chairman serves on the Event Center Committee. Now, Mr. Floyd, I think what I was hearing you say is, in addition to these two organizations, let's get some voices that are actually from that reflect the community. And what I said to you when we talked about that, I said it's supposed to be your elected officials who are the voices that reflect the will of the community, but they tend to get in their own bubble and begin to want what they want and push what they want to push. So
Well,
who's
let me
going
ask you
to
a
up
question
for?
then.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you a question then. You have a Crown Convention Center.
Mhm.
that said that the estimate was 15 years old, whatever. Okay, and it was related to the move and the changes because of the ADA. But what are you going to do with that facility out there if you build this new civic center or convention center here downtown? That building still is going to have to be renovated or torn down. So, to me, it would make better sense if you would uh, renovate the existing or look for a new place altogether that would jumpstart economic development. But at the same time, you're gonna have to do something with that facility. I mean, it's just not going. You're just gonna let it run down or deteriorate because you have not complied with ADA. It doesn't make sense. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, now where they want to put the parking deck was where the county commissioner had a had approved a administrative building for its staff personnel. So it just doesn't make sense. Now on top of that, there's still the question, as you well know, a 1,000 page document.
That we
Okay,
still don't
that
know any of the contents of.
you don't know anything about it. And then on top of that, there was a nonprofit being looked at by the county. I think it's $1.48 million, somewhere like that. But the question of it is, some said I haven't had time to read the documents of these organizations that is requesting or that this money has been approved. So you got this document that you are reading, and then again you have the 100-page document that you're reading. But let me tell you, as you as a legislator, what they tell you is your responsibility. If you got it overnight, that's your responsibility
And
because
you
we're
up all
gonna hear
night,
this.
read, 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 read. Yeah.
We're gonna hear it. We're gonna hear it at 10 o'clock in the morning. So it's up to you,
Yeah.
whether or not you read it or you don't read it. But it reminds me of Fred Sanford when he used to get bills. The bills collector sent them to him, and he put them back in the mailbox.
Hmm.
In the
Yeah.
mailbox. The man said, I sent it. And one thing that a bill collector would do, he would send you a notice.
Yeah, and will shut your stuff off whether you read it or not. Hmm.
So as elected officials, you do have short notice, but that's why you are there. I would love for someone to say is that I don't have time to read document. That's what, as elected official, you can spend a lot of time reading.
That's your responsibility.
You gonna- Yeah, so I just think that those two groups have some they do have some violence. I mean, they do have some concern. Just likewise with me, I think it's a poor investment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mr. Floyd, last but not least, and I did tell the people, I said, make sure you stay tuned because at the end of this podcast, I've got something that I want to share from last week. But before we get to that, Mr. Floyd, let's talk about Chairman Kirk Deviere's State of the County address. So, in his State of the County address, he discussed some key initiatives and priorities. He outlined a forward looking vision that's centered on collaboration, innovation, and inclusive growth. His initiatives and priorities that he outlined for the county included clean water access, educational investment, affordable housing, economic development, public health and safety. Mr. Floyd, when it came to clean water, he was doubling down on the urgency of addressing PFAS contamination, particularly in areas like Grace Creek. He talked about the importance of education and called for increased funding for public schools and stronger collaboration with the Cumberland County Board of Education to enhance student outcomes. He also talked about recognizing the pressing need for affordable housing and proposed initiatives to increase that housing availability and support services for our most vulnerable populations. He stressed the importance of fostering economic growth through strategic investments and public private partnerships, aiming to create job opportunities and stimulate the local economy. And lastly, he addressed mental health and substance abuse, and he advocated for expanded services and support systems to improve community well being. Mr. Floyd, what is your take on what you heard come out of the State of the County address?
It's a good presentation, but it's indicated if you look further down the road in that, that means that the chairmanship, in order to address some of those concerns, may move from a 1 year term to a 2 year term.
What does that mean? Who
That
makes that
he will consider
determination? Who on the
county board, the county commissioners, select their chairman. So what I'm saying, in order to meet those goals, in order to push them forward, it will require him to serve 2 terms as the
or
chair.
it would require his predecessor to be on, or his is that the right word, the person who comes after you, your predecessor,
Yes.
or is that the person that comes before you? Anyway, it would require whoever comes after him to hold the same values and push for the same initiatives.
Again, if you look at politics and if you read the tea leaves, it will require that person to serve 2 terms or more to push those goals forward.
Okay. Well, Mr. Floyd, before we enter into our
But let
closing
me
comments, go ahead.
let me say this too before we do that. May the 8th is the crossover date for the General Assembly. So if you want to know how your legislators act or responsible during the long session, they have 2 key things, and that's one, the budget, and you can go and search the bill that your legislators introduce, and you will see on May the 9th how many of them may cross over either the Senate to the House or the House to the Senate. And if they don't do that, then they will not be heard in the short session or by the end of this session. So
Mhm.
look very careful at the number of bills that your legislators have introduced, and look May the 9th, and you will see a parking deck full of bills from members of the Cumberland County delegation.
Absolutely. A parking lot full, which means they're not going anywhere.
Not going anywhere, and that reminds me. I looked at Jones, who is very active in our community, and he was looking at some bill that was introduced. And when I went back and looked at the bill and I saw the sponsors of the bill, I said, dead on arrival, super dead on arrival. And in some kind of way, we get motivated behind this, but when that bill is not going anywhere, but
Hmm.
they motivate us to be supportive of that activity. You got to look at who the sponsors are, and this is what we have to learn as individuals: who are the sponsors, and look at how many of those person bill has passed one chamber to the next.
Right.
That's my that's my little soapbox
That'll
for this
tell you
week.
something, right? That'll give you an indicator of what you're working with, because there's a lot of sound bites out there. So, Mr. Floyd, I want to refer back to last week, and I'm going to actually refer back to a few weeks because I need to make something very abundantly clear to the listeners of our podcast. We are not a gossip program. When we talk about information, if we are unsure about something or we suspect that something may be happening, there's a word that you like to use that I've now adopted that is an indicator to our listeners that we're just not sure. And that's heard through the grapevine or rumorville. If you hear us say something and we are emphatic about it and we don't indicate that it's alleged or heard through the grapevine, then that means that we tend to have some firsthand knowledge about what we're speaking about. Again, not in terms of gossip, because we're talking about politics. We are talking about the way that politics work. We are talking about the inner workings of the political process. This is a very uncomfortable seat that we sit in sometimes because there's no room for protecting emotions or feelings as we are having these dialogues, Mr. Floyd. So sometimes there are things that will be said that may be perceived to be persnickety or that may be off putting, especially when you take into account relationships. Okay. So there have been two people that I've had to discuss on this podcast that I believe that I have a relationship with. And I need for everybody to understand that when I sit in this seat and I'm speaking and I'm telling the truth as I know it, it is not intended to deface our relationship. So one was a woman, one was a man. One happened some time ago, one happened recently. It is not intended to deface our relationship. I am telling the truth because whatever we are talking about is relevant to the inner workings of how politics pans out. Last week, you said something to me, Mr. Floyd, and when you said it to me, I knew it to not be true. You were reporting to me what was being talked about in the community. I knew it to not be true because I was present when it took place. And as a result of that, we ended up having a conversation that I believe may have been taken out of context and in a way that may have presented as if I was saying that there was a problem or that I had a problem with somebody. I don't have any problems with anybody that I've ever worked with. And I've said this before, even as it relates to the mayor, because there are people who perceive that because I strongly disagree with the way that he does some things, that I have a problem with him personally. Mr. Floyd, I don't know how people grew up, I don't know how they were raised, but I can disagree with you and still love you. I can disagree with you and still have lunch with you and it be pleasant and fun because fundamentally, my life is not politics. My life is not politics. Also, I want to stress this: we will never, I'll speak for myself, but I believe I can speak for you too. We will never sit in these seats and divulge personal information that is not relevant to the political process. If you tell me about a bunion you have, not you, Floyd, but somebody, if they tell me about a bunion that they have, or they tell me about a relationship issue that they're having, that doesn't have anything to do with the political process, unless the relationship that you're having has something to do with the political process. So that's not fodder for our program. In fact, there are many people that I talk to that are politically connected that I have conversations with all the time that you all will never hear about because it's not relevant. So I say that to say this. First of all, we can be trusted to tell you what we know. We can be trusted to let you know when we are not sure about something. And we can be trusted to present that information in a way that should not come across to you all as petty or insignificant. And if y'all take it like that, I want you to go back and watch this and understand that that is not our intention. Mr. Floyd, do you agree with that?
Yes.
Do you have anything you wish to add? Because I know sometimes I
No,
probably get a
no.
okay.
I just like to you in our closing what I what we try to do is to educate you and to provide a different viewpoint because many times as you just mentioned there's a lot of sound bites that people provide to you, and believe me, some of our politicians can charm a bird out of a tree and get it to
Yeah.
sit beside you.
Yeah, and
Remember
I'm gonna
now.
be very clear. I'm not gonna let Kathy Jensen take credit for what me, Shakila, Yvonne, and Courtney fought for. I'm not going to let that happen because I recognize that she's trying to posture and that she has to earn the vote of the black community. I get that because I know that without the vote of the black community, particularly black women, she will not be successful in her election, in her campaign for election. But she's going to have to do that on the strength of what she actually did or did not do. She's not going to be able to do that by garnering support or by garnering sympathy for something that she did not do. And so, if she is alleging that she did something, it was my responsibility to set the record straight. And for any collateral damage, and I've always told, let me say this, when I was at the city, I used to always, there was one person in particular that I would pull to the side and I would say, you need to make sure you keep yourself out of the lane of fire, and you need to make sure that you pay, keep your head on a swivel, because when the crap starts flying, you need a duck so it doesn't hit you in your face. And I'll tell you this, I meant that. And Floyd, I'm loyal. I'm a loyal person. I'm also truthful. Go ahead, sir.
And I just like to say at the end
In
of that
closing,
comment, in closing, if a dog will bring a bone, please remember truly with his tail wagging, he will carry it. God
and
bless
that's
you.
that. God,
And
you
I
was
see
gonna
you
close
when
out. God bless you and what? And God keep you.
and I'll see you next week.
And I will just say that I love y'all. I really do. And like I always tell you, if I've ever done anything to offend, please just forgive, because it's not my intention. Have a wonderful week, and we will catch you on the
Next
next
week.
episode.